5. The Listening Wall. McMurdo's lights were dying one by one. Volkov moved through the corridor by headlamp, boots cracking frost that glittered like glass. The metal beneath her vibrated faintly, a pulse running through the floor, slow and uneven. Somewhere in the distance, a door slammed itself shut, echoing down the empty spine of the base. She flinched, pulse rising. Every surface hummed, soft, rhythmic, as though the station were breathing through its ribs. The hum wasn't power, it was pulse. In the reactor chamber, the heat shimmered like a mirage. Consoles spat static, letters forming half words before vanishing. When she leaned over a screen, her visor fogged. Wiping it clear, she caught her reflection ripple, 2 sets of eyes where one should be. She blinked hard, but they stayed. A loose cable swung from the ceiling and brushed her shoulder. She spun, weapon half raised. Nothing there, only the whisper of air moving through the vents. She exhaled slowly and forced open the diagnostics. Power output, rising. Containment seals, degraded. Origin, unknown. External interference. Something clattered behind her, a metal rod sliding off a workstation. The sound was small but sharp enough to jolt her nerves. She turned too quickly, boots skidding on frost. Her glove caught the edge of the console before she fell. The hum deepened in response, vibrating through her ribs, through her teeth, as if the station were matching her heartbeat. Then it came again. 3 pulses, pause. 3 again. She'd heard it before, out in the storm, through the wolves. A code. A call. Volkov keyed the transmitter. McMurdo control to any active station. Power grids self-feeding. Containment breach imminent. Static answered, then her own voice, warped and delayed. Containment breach. Breach. She tore off the headset, but the echo didn't stop. It crawled through the steel, through her bones. Visitors, sign in. The voice wasn't electronic. It was inside the walls, toneless, mechanical, yet aware. She turned. The reactor's core had opened like an iris. Inside, thick cables twisted downward through a torn section of floor. The grate around it trembled. One bolt popped free and rolled toward her boot, spinning before dropping through the gap. She crouched and peered into the hole. Cold air rose from the wound, dry, ancient, smelling of ozone and stone. Far below, something metallic caught the faint light of her lamp, rungs disappearing into darkness. Paint flaked around the breach, faded stenciling, barely legible. Access hold, level 1. Her pulse quickened. Not a reactor. A lid. She started a visual log. Secondary facility located beneath McMurdo structure. Possible pre-expansion design. Descending. The floor trembled. Dust poured from the ceiling. A pipe overhead snapped from its brace and crashed behind her, sparks skittering across the floor. She spun sharply, heart pounding. The tremor settled into a rhythm, steady, deliberate, a heartbeat through stone. Then a burst of light flared across the ice outside, the horizon blooming orange, storm clouds turning to fire. A shock wave followed, rumbling under the foundation. The lights flickered, died, returned, then died again. She ran to the viewport. Through the storm she glimpsed 2 distant figures on the ridge, shadows against the burning sky. Ro. Cass. She tried to open the outer locks, but the system was frozen, screens bleeding white. Static whispered through the comms, stitched from feedback. "Come below. Below." She turned toward the hatch. The glow from the core spilled down the shaft like molten light. Beneath it, she saw the faint curve of structure, black glass, concentric rings, the outline of a buried dome. The hum rose again, fusing into a single tone until every bolt in the station vibrated. She felt it in her chest, behind her eyes, synced to the drum of her own heart. "We are still below." Silence. Her breath fogged the inside of her visor. Even the storm outside seemed to hold its breath. Volkov stepped to the ladder, the echo of the phrase still trembling through her bones. Below her, the light pulsed once, slow, alive, answering her heartbeat. She hesitated, then followed it down. Chapter 26. After the Fire. Keira came to inside a world of light and noise. The snow around her glowed faintly orange, melting from the heat still bleeding up through the crater. Her helmet display blinked red across the visor. The air was thin and full of ash. She tried to stand and nearly fell again. Niko? Only static. Through the blur, she saw a gloved hand half buried in the drift. She dug with numb fingers until she freed him, sealing the crack in his tank line and hitting the emergency stem. His breathing steadied, frost steaming from his visor. When she turned back, the horizon was collapsing. Ash and ice folding inward where Echo Base had stood. It was gone. The ground was still shifting. Radiation warnings pulsed across her display. Fissures crawled outward from the crater's rim. She wanted to think, to orient herself, but the storm above them moved wrong. Shadows gliding between veils of smoke, tall and thin. Niko stirred, groggy. "Rescue?" She shook her head. "No rescue. We move, now." She hauled him up and started toward the west ridge. McMurdo was still a long way. Behind them, the snow closed like water. The wind changed pitch. No longer wind at all. It became guttural, rising in drawn-out howls that rolled across the plain. Not animals, not machines. Niko froze, weapon raised. Great. More ghosts. Keira drew her sidearm, eyes scanning the fog. A shape darted forward. Too fast, too tall. She fired. The blast carved a glowing arc through the snow. The figure staggered, then reformed as the blizzard closed again. Niko's taser cracked blue, catching two silhouettes in its arc, human shapes, before the dark swallowed them. 5 more forms appeared, weaving through the snow like dancers. Keira emptied her clip. Niko's arcs flared again. For a heartbeat, the wind thinned and faces surfaced in the haze. Cass, Ro, Lang. Familiar eyes staring from the fog. Kira's breath caught. "No!" The figures froze mid-step, then folded inward, flesh liquefying into black glass matter that hissed as it sank into the ice. Silence followed, then the wind returned. "They looked like us," Niko said, voice shaking. Keira nodded, gun trembling in her grip. "They were listening. They learned our shapes." They ran. The ridge behind them moaned and slid apart, ice collapsing in a low, thunderous groan. Keira's oxygen light flashed red. Niko pulled her forward, both tethered by the same line. The howls faded, replaced by a deep hum rising beneath their boots. Every few steps, the vibration synced to their heartbeats. A rusted crawler loomed out of the storm, half buried in snow.
They forced the hatch and stumbled inside, sealing it against the wind. The heater cell coughed to life, barely warm. Her hands shook too much to reload. They weren't alive, she whispered. They were copies, Niko said. Just like that team from McMurdo that took Lang. Just like Lang himself. What the hell was that? He said again. It was like our people, or at least they looked like them. He swallowed hard. They can take shapes now. A hiss cut him off. Volkov's voice spilled through the static, warped and distant. Containment, breach. Then Keira's own voice followed, echoing back a heartbeat late. She shut the radio off. The echo didn't stop. It kept resonating through the crawler's hull, faint and rhythmic, as if the metal itself were carrying it. When the storm eased, they pushed on. The landscape had changed. Rows of toppled antennas stretched across the plain, each mass trembling in the same 3-beat rhythm. Keira crouched, pressing a gloved hand to the metal. The pulse climbed through her palm, into the ground, up her arm. It found her heartbeat and matched it. It's not local, she said quietly. It's everywhere. The whole network is alive. Their oxygen was almost gone when they saw the beacon, McMurdo's perimeter light, faint through the drift. Relief hit, then froze in her chest. The glow came not from above the snow, but beneath it. The hum deepened, echoing like a buried heartbeat. Keira dropped to one knee and pressed her glove to the ice. It's awake. For a heartbeat, the world held still. Then the glow swelled, white, blinding, as though the earth itself had opened an eye. The radio crackled. Volkov, are you there? We are in visual range of McMurdo. I repeat. The transmission broke off in static.
Chapter 27. The Reunion. The banging came first, faint, rhythmic, somewhere beneath the howl of the storm. Volkov froze, head tilted, counting the pattern. Not wind. Too deliberate. She followed the sound through the maintenance corridor, boots cracking frost. The noise grew louder near the outer lock, a steady metallic thud, then the hiss of a dying beacon. She pulled the manual lever. The gears protested, frozen, half-solid, but the seal finally cracked with a shriek. Snow burst inward like a living thing. 2 shapes fell through the threshold, Roe first, dragging another figure behind him. Volkov caught the door, slammed it shut, and spun the locking wheel until the alarms cut out. Silence filled the chamber, thick and pressurized. Roe collapsed against the bulkhead, panting, visor fogged white. The other, Cass, slid down the wall, clutching her left arm. The sleeve was dark with frozen blood. Volkov dropped to her knees beside her. Cass, talk to me. How long were you out there? Cass's voice came thin through cracked lips. Since the blast. Roe leaned back, coughing. She walked half of it. I just followed the light. Volkov toggled her wrist scanner. Vital signs, erratic but stable. Cass's pupils flicked under half lids. Her jaw muscles trembled. Roe muttered, "No wonder she's stressed." Volkov pulled a syringe from her belt, thumbed the dial to minimum dose. Hold still. The sedative hissed softly as it entered Cass's arm. Her breathing evened out. Better? Cass nodded weakly. Yeah. She looked down at the tag hanging from her collar. I thought I left this in Echo. Roe froze. You did, he said. I found it in the snow outside, hours after you were gone. Cass stared at the tag, then at Roe.
The color drained from her face.
"Ro," she whispered. "What the hell is going on?"
He didn't answer. He never lost her gaze. For a moment, none of them spoke. The only sound was the deep hum rising through the floor plates, steady as a heartbeat. They moved together through the corridor, past dead terminals and the smell of cold metal. The emergency lights painted everything in shifting amber, flickering like candlelight on ice. "Generators still running?" Ro asked. "Auxiliary only. Main grids unstable." Cass kept close behind, her steps uneven but determined. Her eyes darted along the walls, tracing condensation that pulsed to the rhythm underfoot. The command room waited at the center of the dome, half lit, half shadow. Frost veined the console screens. Volkov wiped one clean with her sleeve, coaxing a flicker of data to life. "Sit," she told them. "Start from the beginning." Volkov eased into the nearest chair. "Echo's in trouble," she said quietly. "I heard Keira and Niko on the radio a while back." Ro looked up. "What kind of trouble?" She hesitated. "Couldn't tell. The signal broke up. Something about a breach." Ro's jaw tightened. The image came back. The orange glare on the horizon, the ground trembling under his boots. "I saw it. The whole ridge lit up. It wasn't a storm. It was an explosion." Cass turned toward them, voice barely a whisper. "Then they're gone." "Keira!" Cass gasped, as if the name itself could pull her back through the static. None of them said it, but they all understood whatever had taken Echo wasn't finished. Volkov studied Cass for a long second, then nodded. "You did the right thing, leaving when you did." The lights flickered. All three looked up. A relay snapped somewhere down the hole. A door cycled open and closed twice, then stuck half shut. Volkov killed the main power switch. The hum of the turbines dropped to a low, physical vibration. Ro exhaled slowly. "It feels like the base is breathing. Or remembering," Volkov said. Ro rummaged in his pack. Found this, on the way in. A small data block, half melted, stamped with an Echo registry code. Cass blinked. "That's one of McMurdo's storage cores." Volkov slotted it into the console. The screen spat static, then resolved into jittery footage. Men and women in heavy suits moving through a carved tunnel of black glass. One held a scanner, tracing slow arcs across the walls. The display flickered with sonar blooms, forming a perfect sphere. The feed cut to a title overlay, Access Hold, Level 1. Then the video froze. The hum from the floor deepened until the panels trembled under their boots. Cass whispered, "That's under us." Volkov leaned over the console, tapping readouts that refused to stabilize. Seismic activity rising, steady, localized directly below McMurdo. Ro rolled his face. "If it's down there, we shut it off before it opens itself." Cass's voice steadied. "We should see what it is first." Volkov looked between them. "Whatever this place is, it's waking up, and I don't think we want to be here when it does." Preparation became muscle memory. Volkov unlocked the weapons locker. 3 rifles, 4 flares, 1 half-charged plasma cutter. She rebandaged Cass's shoulder and checked the sedative timer. Ro rigged a manual line to the freight lift, rerouting what little power remained to the shaft lights. The base creaked around them, shifting as if the ice outside pressed closer every minute. Cass stood at the edge of the freight platform, helmet clipped under one arm.
We find it, we end it. Volkov joined her. We end it. Ro hit the switch. The lift shuddered, then began to descend. Chains rattling, light spilling down the frost-rimmed walls. The hum rose to meet them, slow and deliberate, as if the world beneath the ice had started to breathe.
Chapter 28. The Descent. The lift shuddered as it dropped through the shaft, a slow metallic heartbeat echoing up the cable. Ice walls slid past, glistening like black glass in the lamplight. After 30 meters, the texture changed. Veins of alloy threaded through the ice, running downward like roots. Volkov checked her wrist display. Temperature rising, pressure stable. Ro leaned against the railing, rifle across his chest. Feels like we're going into a furnace. Cass stared through the grating. Look at the patterning. Those ribs aren't drilled. They're grown. No one answered. The hum from below filled the air, deep enough to rattle their teeth. The lift jerked once, then slowed. The control light blinked green. Landing, Volkov said quietly. They stepped out onto a narrow steel platform. Frost creaked beneath their boots. Ahead, a corridor sloped away, metal walls fused with smooth, dark material that reflected light like oil. The air smelt faintly of ozone and old heat. Kaz pointed to a faded stencil on the bulkhead. Echo 1, Vault Access. Ro brushed the letters. Built right into the rock, or whatever this is. Volkov checked her gauge again. Power readings rising from below. Something's active. They moved forward, lamps cutting through vapor that hung like breath in the corridor. Pipes throbbed faintly underfoot. The hum grew stronger, structured now, deliberate. The corridor opened into a vast gallery. Through cracked safety glass, they saw a cavern stretching out beneath them. Immense, half filled with frost and drifting mist. At its center rested a vessel the size of a city block. Sleek, curved, its hull black as obsidian and dusted with ice. Scaffolding and cranes surrounded it, frozen mid-motion like abandoned toys. Kaz pressed a hand to the window. That's not human. Volkov's voice softened. McMurdo wasn't a reactor. It was a vault. They stood in silence, listening to the hum that seemed to come from the ship itself. A spiral gantry wound downward into the cavern. Their steps echoed off the frozen walls. The closer they came, the more their lights picked up faint blue currents beneath the ship's skin, lines pulsing slow and steady, like veins under translucent flesh. Kaz reached the floor first. There's heat coming off it. Keep your distance, Volkov warned, though her voice had gone reverent. She couldn't look away. Rose circled the bow, scanning with his light. There's movement inside the hull, power flux, something's active. The first shadow appeared near a crawler, tall, flickering at the edge of sight. Rose snapped his rifle up. Contact! Volkov swung her light. Nothing. Only the gleam of frozen steel. Kaz's breath hitched. I saw it. It moved between those crates. Volkov's voice steadied. Eyes open. No sudden shots. Another flicker, closer this time, crossing the ship's flank. For an instant, it looked human, then folded into darkness again. The hum beneath them climbed half a tone. They started to retreat toward the corridor. Something moved ahead, two silhouettes against the blue glow. Their outlines shimmered, distorted by heat. Kaz fired. The blast cracked through the cavern, scattering light across the hull. An energy bolt slammed into the ice beside her, spraying vapor. They're armed, Rose shouted. More beams streaked from the dark, white hot, carving grooves through machinery. Steam burst from shattered pipes. Volkov grabbed Kaz's arm. Run! They sprinted across the cavern floor, boots slipping on wet ice. Another bolt scorched past Ro's shoulder, melting a line through the railing. The air filled with the hiss of steam and the hammer of their footsteps. Kaz glanced back, just enough to see the shapes advancing. Humanoid, but wrong, their edges rippling like water. They moved in perfect unison. The corridor ahead glowed faint red under emergency lights. Volkov led the way, firing short controlled bursts down the passage. Ro covered Kaz as she stumbled, yelling, "Go, go!" An energy beam struck the wall beside Volkov, showering sparks. She slammed the lift controls. "Inside!" They piled in as another blast tore through the doorway, molten spray hissing against the bulkhead. Volkov shammed the gate shut. The lift lurched upward, gears shrieking. Through the grating they watched the cavern fall away, the ship below glowing from within, its veins of light spreading outward through the ice like awakening arteries. The shadows gathered around it, moving with purpose. Kaz pressed a trembling hand to the railing. "They're guarding it." Volkov's jaw tightened. "Then it's awake." The hum followed them up the shaft, steady, alive, matching the rhythm of their hearts.
Chapter 29. The Thing Below. The lift jerked to a stop halfway up the shaft. For a moment there was only the hum and their breathing. Then the lights died. Ro slammed a fist against a panel. "We've lost main power." Volkov's voice cut through the duck, calm but sharp. "Manual override. Go." They forced the inner hatch and climbed out into a maintenance bay. Steam rolled in waves from cracked conduits. The air was wet and metallic, vibrating with that same rhythm that had followed them since the cavern. 3 beats. Pause. Repeat. Cass steadied herself against the wall. "It's inside the grid." "Move," Volkov ordered. The corridor ahead flickered between red and black. Condensation ran down the walls in thin streams, pooling across the floor plates. Their boots left prints, and then a second later, the same prints appeared beside them, running the other way. Ro froze. Movement. A figure stepped from the smoke. His height, his gear, his gait. The same burn mark across the chest plate. "Hold fire," Volkov said, though her hand hovered near the trigger. The copy raised its rifle. Ro didn't wait. 3 bursts ripped through the dark, slamming the thing backward. It staggered once, then came apart. Liquid metal peeling from a hollow shell, collapsing into a twitching puddle that reflected all 3 of them in warped angles. Cass's voice trembled. "That was you." Ro wiped his visor. "Not anymore." They pushed deeper into the lower corridor. Alarms wailed above, muffled by the thick air. Frost melted from the ceiling in sheets. Droplets hissed where they hit hot metal. At the next junction, Cass knelt by the residue of the fallen mimic. It still pulsed, tiny flashes flickering inside like sparks under glass. "It's copying patterns. Every time we fire, it learns." Volkov stared at the walls. The reflections no longer matched their movements, each one a fraction too slow. The base groaned. A deep crack rolled through the floor. Red lights flared, bright enough to burn shadows into their visors. From every doorway along the hall, something began to move. Figures forming out of the wet sheen on the walls, faces half-shaped, bodies still liquid. "Back!" Volkov shouted. The first creature reached for her. Its hands split open, unfolding into glassy threads. She fired point blank. The shot punched a hole straight through, but the fragments stayed alive, crawling back together. Rose struck a flare and slammed it to the wall. The magnesium hissed white. The creature recoiled, shrieking without a mouth. "Fire hurts," he yelled. "Then burn them," Volkov snapped. They ran. The tunnel twisted, lights strobing with every step. Behind them the shapes followed, half running, half flowing, footsteps perfectly in sync. Cass hurled a thermal charge. The blast filled the corridor with blue fire and freezing vapor. For a heartbeat, silence. Then movement again. Closer. Many. Rose's voice crackled through the comm. "They're everywhere! Ladder shaft! Up!" The freight chamber was half collapsed, steam pouring from ruptured vents. The lift hung above, cables swaying like vines. They climbed through the mist, hands burning on the heated rungs. Cass slipped, Ro caught her harness and hauled her higher. Below, a single mimic crawled up the wall, its face shifting through their own. Volkov's eyes, Ro's mouth, Cass's whisper, "Wait." Ro yanked a flare from his belt and dropped it. The creature reached and burst in light, molten spray hissing into the fog. They reached the upper bay. Volkov shoved the manual wheel with both hands, locking it once, twice, until the bolts clang home. Steam roared through the seams, then stopped. Cass sank against the bulkhead, shaking. "Tell me that's done." Volkov leaned on the wheel, helmet off, breath loud in the still air. "We didn't kill it." Ro turned, rifle raised. "Then what did we do?" Volkov looked down. The vibration was back. 3 beats. Pause. Repeat. Strong enough to ripple the water pooled at their feet. "We shut the door," she said quietly, "while it's still breathing." No one spoke. The lights steadied to dim red. Through the walls, far below, the hum kept time. Like something remembering their footsteps.